Tom Howell-Jones of Aberdare, international raider, fighting for the Republic in Spain, writes home to his mother, "Here's a Spanish dish. Fry some sliced potatoes. When done, whisk some eggs in a dish and pour on the potatoes to make a pancake. Here it's called a tortilla. You must try one and think of me." It was late spring 1938. Soon, with the rest of what remained of the Welsh volunteers in Spain, Tom Howell-Jones was going to be here in the valley of the River Ebro. There were going to be 16,000 Nazi soldiers on the Franco side. The Battle of the Ebro was going to be the turning point of the Spanish Civil War.
In the spring of '38, the position of the Republic became desperate. The fascists opened an Aragon offensive coming down the Ebro Valley, with about 250,000 Italian, German, Moroccan and Spanish troops. Their planes were everywhere. They had hundreds of tanks, thousands of guns, and the Republican troops and the British battalion retreated from Belchite to Caspi right down to Bataya. I can still remember the iron-hard roads in the nights and the moonlit nights and the piercing wind as we marched from position to position.
The Spanish communist orator La Pasionaria had cried, "Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees." Now, as the third year of the war began, more and more Republicans were testing her words. Tommy Adlam, Tom Pentre.
I was the only foreigner there, and 3 Spaniards were in this bit of a hole. And we go see the tanks going up over, just above our heads. So one of these Spaniards has a white towel around his neck. So all of a sudden he started waving the towel. So I turned around and grabbed him. I went to hit him. I said, "Will you surrender?" And he said, "Mr. Reba, look up." And there was an Italian sitting behind a machine gun trying to fire down on us, and his machine gun was jammed. So here it is. I got up, and these Spaniards walked ahead of me. I stayed there, and I thought I'd go back this way if I can. So some of they go, you know, instead of coming this way, they do come. I said, "Thank you very much, so long." And I turned to go. And they said, no, arriba, up. So I had to go, give myself up then. So we walked us down the road a couple of yards, and an Italian officer came up. And he asked these 3 boys what nationality they were, and they said Spaniards. And though I had my cap on with a Red Cross badge in it, turned to me, he said, "National?" I said, "English," because we were all English according to them. I said, "English." And he had a revolver in his hand, and lifted up his revolver, pointed it to my head, and I put my hand up, and he fired, and he went down. And I thought, what I want to see won't hurt so much, like. So I was on the floor, and I thought I was there for a lifetime, waiting for that bullet. But I heard tanks coming. So I thought, oh, well, it's better get up and have 1 bullet and finish it than perhaps a tank. So I put on a act, you know, life is precious after all. I put on an act as if I'd fainted. And I shook my head and lifted my head up, and I could see a pair of boots staring me in the face and a revolver in somebody's hand. So I thought, oh, here it is, you don't go on down. So I got up and put my hands up, I said, "Shoot to hell with it." So a motorbike pulled up then, and he asked, Italian it was, and he asked this other Italian who I was, and he said, Republican. He said, "Death." Oh, thank you very much. So he made me get up then, and he made me hand my personal stuff over. He took me a couple of yards down the road, and there was some Italian officer, and he looked somebody really high to me. And he asked me, could I speak Spanish? I said, "Poco," and English. "Oh, you speak English, can you?" he said, in perfect English. I said, "Yes." She said, "What brigade do you belong to?" Oh, not giving nothing away. "Oh, you're attached to the medical." I said, "Yes, but you've got to be attached to some brigade," he said, "a company." "Oh," I said, "International Brigade." So you're English?" he said. I said, "No, I'm Welsh." I thought if they're going to shoot me for being an Englishman, well, I stand a better chance for being Welsh. So he Welsh. I couldn't understand that. So I was trying to describe to him then. I said, "Britain?" "Si." "Scotia?" "Si." I said, "Inglaterra?" "Si." I said, "Esquerra," the left. I said, "Wales?" "Ah, comprendi," he said. "Gales." So that's the first time I knew they called it Wales Gales in their language.
Early on in the war, prisoners on both sides had been shot out of hand. The question of prisoners and of the particularly black ferocity of the fighting is recalled by Frank Thomas of Cardiff, who fought in the Spanish Foreign Legion on the Franco side.
We had the Moors fighting for us, of course, and I mean the things that they did were nothing to be proud of, because the Moors were, well, shall we say, an uncivilized people as far as European civilization was thought of. They used to catch their prisoners, they used to torture them and kill them. At least with our prisoners we did shoot them. But on both sides at the beginning of that war, neither side took prisoners. And particularly if the Legion were captured, legionnaires were captured, you could count on not being killed instantly. You were very lucky if you died very quickly. Very lucky. As a matter of fact, we all carried one spare bullet. This was issued to you when you joined the Legion, and that bullet was for yourself. If you were taken prisoner, more damn fool you. Things did improve vastly once the International Brigade came. I'm sure they don't realize how bloody that war was from the beginning of it for the first 3 or 4 or 5 months. Because after all, they never came there until November, December. And by that, once they came, well, we did start getting some sort of rule about prisoners and the way things should be conducted.
If prisoners of war are taken, obviously an army must be advancing. They can't be taken when an army is on the defensive and retreating. The only periods that I can recall where the Republican army was advancing was, as I've already said, in Brunetti, and later in September in the region of Belchite, Quinto. They did make some progress, captured some little hills actually, and I remember when I went up, because the battalion commander had been killed, a man named Peter Daly, who had one time worked in the collieries in Gorseinon, and we had to get another battalion commander appointed. I went over this hill, and it was quite clear that the fascist armies had been there for a very long time. They had dugouts there. There was evidence too of some ladies' clothing in some of the dugouts as well, so they must have been well entertained during the stalemate situation that existed previously. And corpses, bloated and black, lying about on the hill, you know. And when we got to the actual front, the Moors were on the opposite side in the trenches there, because they had already dug in by the time I got up. And what was really eerie, and to some extent frightening, was the sort of wailing that came from the Moorish trenches, especially when the moon came up, sort of banshee wailing, you know, rather, I suppose, part of their attitude to the moon or whatever, I don't know. But it was really an eerie experience to hear